The city sprawled beneath a shroud of perpetual twilight. Rain fell in a ceaseless drizzle, each droplet a mournful note in a never-ending jazz symphony. I stood in the shadows, my fedora pulled low over my eyes, the collar of my trench coat turned up against the chill that seeped through the damp night air. My name is Jack Malone, private investigator, and the rain-drenched streets of this city were my playground. The case came to me like a whisper in a dark alley. It was a late Thursday night when a knock echoed through my office door. I didn't have many clients these days, and none of them brought good news. The man who walked in was tall, his suit impeccable, but his eyes betrayed a fear I knew all too well. "I need your help, Malone," he said, his voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. I gestured for him to sit, and he obliged, perching on the edge of a cracked leather chair. "What's the trouble?" He cleared his throat and glanced around as if the shadows had ears. "It's my wife, Lana. She's missing, and I think she might be dead." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling a cloud of smoke that drifted lazily toward the cracked ceiling. "Tell me everything." The man's name was Victor Granger, a wealthy businessman with a taste for the finer things in life. His wife, Lana, had been the jewel in his crown, a stunning beauty with a mysterious past. It was that past that had come back to haunt them both. Lana had been an enigmatic woman, with secrets hidden behind her emerald green eyes. Victor had met her in a smoky jazz club on the wrong side of town, and they had been inseparable ever since. But recently, she had been receiving threatening letters and phone calls, each one more sinister than the last. As Victor recounted the details of Lana's disappearance, I couldn't help but feel a shiver crawl up my spine. The city had a way of swallowing people whole, especially those who walked the line between darkness and light. Lana had strayed too far into the shadows, and now it was my job to find her. I started my investigation by visiting the last place Lana had been seen, the jazz club where she and Victor had first crossed paths. The joint was a dimly lit den of iniquity, the air thick with the sweet scent of bourbon and the sultry notes of a saxophone. The patrons eyed me with suspicion as I made my way to the bar. The bartender, a stocky man with a pencil-thin mustache, gave me a curt nod. "What can I get you, pal?" "Information," I replied, slipping a few bills onto the bar. "I'm looking for a woman named Lana. She used to frequent this place." The bartender's eyes darted around, and he leaned in closer. "Lana was trouble, you know. Always mingling with the wrong crowd. Haven't seen her in weeks, though. She stopped coming around." I pressed for more details, but the bartender clammed up, his fear palpable. It seemed Lana had ruffled more feathers than I had anticipated. As I left the jazz club, the rain had turned into a downpour, soaking me to the bone. I couldn't shake the feeling that Lana's disappearance was connected to those threatening letters she'd been receiving. I needed to get my hands on them. But Victor had neglected to bring any to our meeting. I decided to pay Victor's lavish mansion a visit. The rain had let up by the time I arrived, leaving behind a glistening sheen on the cobblestone driveway. I slipped through the gates and approached the front door, my footsteps muffled by the damp grass. The mansion was a looming behemoth, its stone facade shrouded in ivy. The door was unlocked, as if someone had left in a hurry. I stepped inside, my senses on high alert. The place was a maze of opulence, with chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds and artwork that could have funded a small country. My search led me to Lana's study, a room tucked away on the third floor. It was here that I found the letters, dozens of them, neatly stacked on her desk. Each one was a venomous threat filled with cryptic messages and ominous warnings. But one stood out, a chilling missive written in blood-red ink. "You can't escape your past, Lana. It's catching up to you, and there's nowhere left to hide." I pocketed the letter and continued my search, hoping to find a clue that would lead me to Lana's whereabouts. It was then that I stumbled upon a hidden compartment in the floor. Inside, I found a diary, its pages filled with Lana's thoughts and fears. As I read through the diary, a dark and twisted tale emerged. Lana had been a femme fatale in her past life, involved in a criminal underworld that would make even the most hardened gangsters shudder. Her past had caught up with her, and she had been living in fear ever since. I knew I had to confront Victor with what I had discovered. But when I returned to my office, I found Victor Granger waiting for me, a look of desperation etched into his face. "I heard you were snooping around my house," he said, his voice trembling. "What did you find?" I didn't mince words. I showed him the threatening letter written in blood-red ink and Lana's diary. His face paled as he read through the pages. "I had no idea," he stammered. "I knew Lana had secrets, but I didn't know the extent of it." I pressed him for more information, and he revealed that Lana had been receiving anonymous phone calls from a man who called himself the Reaper. The Reaper had been demanding something from her, something that had sent Lana into a panic. We decided to set a trap for the Reaper, using Lana as bait. Victor would pretend to cooperate with the mysterious caller, while I would be lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce when the time was right. The night of the sting operation was cold and unforgiving, the rain falling in a relentless torrent. Victor sat in his study, the phone receiver in his trembling hand. I hid in the darkest corner of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone rang, the shrill sound echoing through the room. Victor answered, his voice shaking. "I'll give you what you want, just tell me where she is." A sinister chuckle came from the other end of the line. "You're a smart man, Victor. Meet me at the old abandoned warehouse on 5th Street in an hour. Come alone, or Lana dies." Victor hung up the phone, his face ashen. He looked at me, his eyes filled with fear and determination. "We have to save her, Malone." We rushed to the warehouse, the rain pelting us mercilessly. The place was a decrepit structure, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. As we entered, the stench of decay and desperation filled the air. In the dimly lit interior, we found Lana bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. But there was no sign of the Reaper. It was a trap, and we had walked right into it. Just as the realization struck us, the lights flickered to life, revealing a figure standing in the shadows. It was a man, dressed in a long black coat, his face hidden beneath a hood. In his hand, he held a gleaming knife. "You're too late," he hissed. "Lana has paid for her sins." He lunged at us, the blade glinting in the dim light. Victor and I fought back with everything we had, but the Reaper was relentless. It was a brutal and bloody battle, with punches thrown and bones broken. In the end, it was Victor who delivered the final blow, sending the Reaper sprawling to the ground. We unmasked the hooded figure, revealing a face twisted by madness. It was a man named Vincent Morgan, a former associate of Lana's from her criminal days. He had become obsessed with her, believing that she had betrayed him. In his twisted mind, he had become the Reaper, a vengeful specter, hell-bent on punishing Lana for her past sins. As the police arrived to take Morgan into custody, Lana clung to Victor, tears streaming down her face. The nightmare was finally over, but the scars would linger. In the weeks that followed, Lana and Victor tried to put their lives back together. They had both been victims of their own pasts, haunted by the choices they had made in a city that demanded everything and gave nothing in return. I watched from the shadows as they walked away, their figures disappearing into the rain-soaked streets. The city had taken its toll on them, but they had found a sliver of redemption in the darkness. As for me, I would continue to walk the line between light and shadow, searching for answers in a city that held its secrets close and its ghosts even closer.